let me go ahead and recognize right now, tonight with us, ladies, we have Taja Graham, the chapter president of QCWIB Indiana, actually in Indiana tonight, right, Taja?
I am here in
Awesome.
Tundra, yes.
Yeah. And Taja Graham is representing tonight the chapter of Queen City Women in Business, but she is also the CEO of TMG Solutions Advisors. Taja, we're glad you're with us. We're also joined by the legal professional, know-how of Amie Peele, Leake, CEO at Peele Law Group, PC, intellectual property lawyer, mediator, all things. How you doing tonight, Amie?
I am ecstatic to be with all of you this evening and look forward to a great hour of discussion. Thank you, Nicole.
Absolutely. I am too. I am on fire for tonight's topic. Trust me. And I know these ladies are as well. But it doesn't stop there. We have Melissa Bassano and Brittany Fowler joining us from Browning and Associates, where Melissa is the VP and C-suite executive career advisor, as is Brittany Fowler, representing Browning Associates. How are y'all feeling tonight, ladies?
Really great.
Excited to be here.
Are y'all ready for this topic? We're going to tackle some big topics tonight, right?
We're ready.
Yes.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. But we don't stop there. We also have the expertise of Dr. Stephanie Kirkland, CEO at Identity Dynamics, who's a keynote speaker. She specializes in organizational consultancy and so much more. Dr. Stephanie, where are you at tonight? How are you feeling?
I am feeling well. Thank you. So glad to be here.
We're so glad you're here. And I would be remiss if I did not welcome our one and only gentleman of the night, John L. Walton II, right, who joins us tonight from Charlotte, North Carolina, last minute, but he's passionate about this topic. He is a business diversity inclusion compliance officer. Did I get that right, John?
Yes, you did. Perfect. Very perfect. Yes.
Awesome. So as you all can see, we have an expert team tonight to tackle this topic. Now, ladies, you might be tempted to ask some questions or put those questions in the chat. So again, tonight is going to be about informing you and having a meaningful conversation. You will get some content at the end. So let's talk about Project 2025, right? This is what is on everyone's mind. If you Google it, if you YouTube it, everyone is talking about it, and it has all types of impacts, okay? And we're going to talk about many of those impacts tonight. So Project 2025 was really put together by the Heritage Foundation, and this is really what's supposed to be the roadmap forward for the new presidency. So Amie Peele, Leake, I'm going to take you off mute just so that you're in a position to answer one of our first questions. So ladies, here's what I want to talk about tonight. As women business owners, since Project 2025 is going to impact the way that we work, the way that we live, and the way that we do business, tonight, we're going to focus on how it impacts how we do business as women. So I want to start with the first impacts that we expect to feel, right? And everyone is talking about DEI. And I want to talk about this because it impacts us, because women small businesses used to be classified as a part of a DEI initiative. So that is one of the areas that we understand is going away. It's being rolled back. In fact, Walmart has talked about rolling back. JP Morgan Chase, there's so many big brands that are rolling back. And Attorney Amie Peele, this one is for you, because we're hearing rumblings that not only is it being rolled back, but agencies and leaders who once forced or mandated that people take DEI training are now going to be targeted and scrutinized and potentially facing legal ramifications. Is that legal? Can they do that, Attorney Amie Peele?
Well, you know, in terms of what they can and what they can't do, we'll remember 2 administrations ago, there were a lot of executive orders that were passed. So some changes in the law did not go through the legislative process. So it's really too soon to know exactly what the president-elect is going to take action on and what he's not. Sometimes he is perhaps less predictable than others on the political, the biggest political stage. In terms of reflecting on what he's talked about, he's kind of, you know, looked at this both ways. I mean, he has said some of, you know, Project 2025 he aligns with. He has slammed other aspects of it and then gone back and said, no, it's good. So I'm not sure anyone can truly say or predict what he will do, and so there's some uncertainty there, I think.
Yeah.
But I want to go back to the most fundamental document that we have in the United States, and one that every president that is sworn in has to swear to defend, and that's the United States Constitution. The First Amendment guarantees us the right of free assembly. Yeah. Peaceable free assembly. And so that's what I go back to in terms of how can I believe in where we are and what we're doing. So we have that there. The other thing that I want to make sure people are thinking about is what does the federal government have jurisdiction over, right? So that's what the federal government does and federal agencies do. And, you know, anybody that receives federal money, they also can put stipulations there, but they can't control necessarily or as directly what private companies do.
Sure.
States have their own jurisdiction. So we need to be keeping all of that in mind, because we might be able to direct our businesses to other areas where there are more freedoms and there's more tolerance for these types of things remaining.
That raises such a good point. And there's so much to unpack in what you just said. And I want to come back to you on this. So you talked about government. And I want John, so John, I'm going to tee this question up for you because you're here tonight. You're in that government space, and you, for what you do, you're in that DEI space. And we were speaking earlier, you were talking about how government agencies who already had projects and initiatives allocated, funding allocated for DEI initiatives, what's going to happen, right, in the event that this doesn't pass the House and they roll back quickly? What happens to those funds? How quickly are those funds dispersed and used? Can you talk a little bit about that before we go to some of our other panelists?
100%. Like I definitely want to reiterate what Amie, right? Like her name is Amie,
Yes.
Attorney Amie, what she stated before. A lot of these things have not been codified by law yet. It gets preempted to really react to what we cannot foresee coming down the pipeline. But what we can do is, again, look at what's already been placed in front of us and scrutinize that accordingly. Specifically, Nicole, with our conversation, the Dismantle DEI Act that went through the House committee, I want to say 2-3 weeks ago. Now, I encourage you all to, again, search that again. It's called the Dismantle DEI Act. It was sponsored by our incumbent vice president. And I won't go through the whole aspect of the document, but a few points to call out here would be Section 104, which talks about prohibited funds. And to make a long and short of it, any federal office that has any office, relating to diversity, equity, inclusion, or accessibility. The key, so again, it's not just DEI, it's also accessibility as well, or sustainability, or any similar office. Those federally funded programs will cease to be funded. So again, how it impacts government at the local levels is that if you have federally funded programs like the DBE program, right? You may see some changes in that because again, that's federally funded. Section 105 of that also states again, DEI offices will be closed.
Yeah.
So again, terminated, closed. They're going to reduce the workforce. So within 90 days. So if this Dismantle DEI Act passes, as far as the House and the Congress, they are going to, within 90 days, enact those stipulations. Again, those are only 2 of them out of the whole document, but that would drastically shape again what funding realities will be for some programs, how these resources and programs will again assist the people as a whole. So I would say, again, be very aware of this, cognizant of, again, what your funding situation is. If you are getting funding as an agency through a federal program that has anything adjacent to, again, not just diversity, equity, inclusion, but accessibility. And again, this is in the actual act itself. You want to start planning again for what could be the reality come 2025.
Very interesting. And we're going to come back to it. So very, very good. I want to circle back. So Melissa and Brittany, I want to come to you for a second. So as we talk about DEI, and we're starting here first because this is the first impact we're all seeing, right? It's almost like swift overnight. We're seeing rollbacks. Even Queen City Women in Business is being impacted. Some of the conversations we had with the Walmarts in the supplier diversity space are now on pause. But here's the question for you. So as you all are in the executive search world, right? Your career focus, I want to talk about those DEI roles for a second. I want to talk about people who are doing in the DEI space for a living at an executive level. In some cases, we remember the George Floyd hires, the C-suite. What is the tone right now? Like, what's happening to those roles? How are people feeling? Can you all give us a pulse check of the career aspect?
Melissa, I'll take this if you don't mind.
Sure.
Yeah, so we've actually been seeing DEI being rolled back since 2021. So the pullback that we're seeing is not really new. And something I like to tell my clients all the time is there's going to be things in your control and there's going to be things not in your control. So a lot of what we talk about tonight is going to be a lot of unknowns, is going to be a lot of speculation. So, part of why I really wanted to be part of this panel tonight was to make sure that I can bring to you the things that we do know that are important, that are in all of our controls. Sure. So specifically when it comes to DEI, we probably will continue to see a pullback, but the good thing is, whether you are in DEI or not, this is important for everyone to understand, we are in a skills-based market. Yeah. We are no longer really identifying ourselves in our career as titles. Yeah. Titles don't help people understand where your passions and your value lie. Your skills do. So when we are looking at all different types of executives, it's really not about, oh, hey, this is my title that tells someone's specialty. It's more so, painting a clear picture of what your passions are and being really clear about your skills. And if that's not an exercise that you've done before, I highly recommend going into ChatGPT. You can prompt it to ask you to give the top, 100 highly sought after executive skills. Go down that list and ask yourself, do I check this box? Because if you can get really clear about your skills and your passions, that's what's gonna move all of us, DEI or not. It's gonna be what moves us all into the future. So it's an exercise for everyone.
No, that sounds good. No, very, very helpful. So let's now talk about DEI from an industry. There are women on this call right now, okay, who were in the DEI space and this was their business. So now I'm going to move away, right, from the legal aspect, the county grant piece, which John covered. Brittany, you covered the career piece. Lovely. But let's talk about women small businesses now. I'm getting ready to navigate us forward, okay? And there are many, many women who are members of Queen City Women in Business, who are in the DEI space, right? Like Chef Maria, for example, who uses dessert tastings to teach DEI leadership, right? And then Dr. Stephanie, you as well. So this question is for you, Dr. Stephanie. So a company like yours that built its entire practice on identity-centered leadership, which has a DEI aspect to it, how do you survive that? What happens now? What does the pivot look like in the event it rolls back and people want to disassociate themselves? What does that look like from your perspective?
From my perspective, identity-centered leadership is about focusing on how do we leverage our uniqueness for our success. So it's not just about my ethnicity, it's about every aspect that makes me who I am as a unique individual, and how do I now leverage what that is into the work that I do, as well as with the philosophies that I walk out in my space. So the aspect of diversity, equity, and inclusion with regards to me, people can put me in that space, but that is not how I lead what I do. So I think that we can leverage those concepts and content, as well as leverage other aspects of how we show up and what that looks like. So, but I do have colleagues who are what we call purists. Yeah. They are purists, diversity, equity, and inclusion facilitators and practitioners, and they're holding hard. And I'm all for it. I don't think people should run away from it. That's something that I have a little leaning about. I believe that if you believe that you're called to that space, right, then you take the information that's coming towards you and you position yourself with the knowledge of what's happening and build your capacity so that you can continue to do what you know you're called to do. Yes. So I don't want the women on here to run away from it because of everything that's happening. If it is your space, it is your space. If that's what you're called to do and you need to walk in that, walk in it and walk in it
Yes.
hard, because we have to be mindful that all of this ruckus that's going on, and I know Brittany said that, because people are trying to make it a revenue issue. Diversity, equity, and inclusion is not a revenue issue. It is a corporate culture issue. And if you could position yourself as someone who deals with organizational culture, because that's part of my background and part of the work that I do, it is an organizational cultural issue.
That's good.
Their organizations are becoming globally diverse. You cannot get away from the conversation. You just need to know how to have the conversation.
That's good.
And how to be innovative in the conversation. Don't get caught up in the words. Whether they call it diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging, inclusion, I don't care what they call it. They still have to deal with it. And you just have to be innovative in how you approach it and what that looks like for you.
I love it. Okay. High five. I love that you, and listen, you said no matter what you call it, there's still work to be done. And so this takes us to a great question. So Colette Lucky, we're going to now lean to a question from our attendees. Colette Lucky out of California. I hope she's on here tonight. She asked, will DEI survive? And if so, how? What are some actionable steps? So I know that we're giving perspective, but for someone who wants to stand down, and they want to stand firm, what is the step for them to stay in this space, true to this space, Dr. Stephanie? Is it to find other companies who are still doubling down on what does that look like for Colette? This is her question before we move forward.
The bottom line is people are still hiring people who do diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Right.
I have colleagues who are making 6-7 figures doing diversity, equity, and inclusion. Are they being innovative with their conversation? Yes. Now they're talking about being an innovative inclusionist.
Yes.
So they're nuancing the language, but the work that they do hasn't changed. They're going to have to do this work. I want y'all to really get that in your shanana. You might not be able to get federal money, but if it's the work to be done, the money is there to do the work. You just need to know who has the wherewithal and the capacity for you to go after that work. So don't get so caught up in, and now this is my little lens, y'all, because this is a panel. So don't get caught up in federal funding and all of that. If you know what you're doing, you are worthy to be paid your hire. Don't just be waiting on a federal money to pay you to do what you do.
Keep doing the work.
Put your stuff in position, become an expert in your space, and do the work.
Yeah.
Dr. Nicole, may I piggyback on that, please?
Yes, and then we're going to switch segments. Yes.
Yeah, so just a couple of things that I noted and just want to underscore and add to and amplify what Dr. Stephanie said, and that is continuing to focus on your competencies and your merit. And as Brittany said, your skill sets. We can morph the language, in other ways. I think networking and look in your own backyard. It was a couple of sessions maybe a month or two ago when Nicole had a session for VIPs on getting in touch with folks in your county. Look at your county, your city, your state, so that you're not only looking for federal funding.
Yeah, that's good. That's so good. Oh my gosh, we could talk about this particular topic all night. So we're going to switch gears now. Now we're going to talk about a topic that is near and dear to my heart. So if I have not said it to any of the guests on the call tonight, we are Queen City Women in Business. We are nationwide, and we support women nationwide in getting federal and corporate contracts faster than anyone else, to the tune of $2.25 million in our first year. So if you want to become a member, make sure you reach out to us on this chat, okay? But I want to talk about that, because when we started to see Project 2025, we started thinking, oh my gosh, supplier diversity. Now, let me be very honest, and this question is going to go to Taja, okay? Supplier diversity. Supplier diversity currently impacts women businesses like you. Doesn't matter what type of nationality, what background. If you're a woman small business today, you are considered a part of that supplier diversity pie, right? It includes small businesses, supplier diversity, women businesses, supplier diversity, minority businesses, supplier diversity, LGBTQ plus businesses, right? So I want to talk about what this means. So Taja, I want to go to you right now with this one, because this is very near and dear. You are the Indiana chapter president. You are helping women in Indiana connect to corporate contracts faster than anyone else. Are we at risk? Are women leaders at risk? How do you think these changes impact supplier diversity? And then I have a quick story to tell about even us focusing on women and what that might look like. Is that a problem, right? Is gender, right, inclusion now going to be a thing? But Taja, talk about what you're hearing on the street. What are women worried about when it comes to the supplier diversity space? Let's talk about it.
Well, I want the women on this call to rest assured in a couple of things. 3 words that I will use for you: adaptability, alignment, and accountability. Change happens. We know that, regardless if it's economic, regardless if it's regulatory, if it's by the market, your resiliency comes, and you know this, in the abilities to be adaptable, to realign, to be innovative, and to hold accountability to those that express that they will be supportive of a diverse supplier environment. So that is where I say we need to continue to lean in. And that is the very thing that at Queen City Women in Business we foster, is the ability to show that innovation, to express what it is that you bring value. Value is important. It's not just talking about this is what I do as a service. It's how do you express the value that you're providing to that procurement officer, to that company dynamic. That is what's going to be important, is expressing that and understanding any of the shifts and changes vernacularly of what is going to happen. So it might not be expressed as supplier diversity. It might be expressed some other way. Are you adaptable enough to make the switch?
Yes.
Can you do that in your marketing, in your vocabulary, so that you catch it and you know how to respond to it? That is going to be what is most important. We do a great job of helping you to do those pivots,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
This is nothing new as a part of Queen City Women in Business. And then the connections, making sure that you continue to nurture those connections in meaningful ways, understanding how the landscape has changed for them so that you can respond accordingly. But it's based on you keeping those relationships
Yes.
key. The accountability comes in all of us that are in this space, holding each other accountable to the process, no matter what the vernacular change is, no matter how we have to come to the table under this new procurement scenario. How do we hold each other accountable to the process is going to be critically important. As leaders, as women entrepreneurs, we just need to maintain. This is nothing new. As we've expressed DEI, as of 2021, we were already seeing changes in what that was. We always need to be resilient and making sure we're adaptable, we're in alignment, and we hold people accountable.
Let's talk about that resilience. And then John, I'm going to come to you because I know you're in this space, right? You are currently preaching, so to speak, for women to become certified, right, as MBEs and some women as WBEs. So I want to talk about your lens too. But before you do, I just want to say one thing that I think we've gotten right with Queen City Women in Business, with preparing our members. So today we have over 600 members. When we started this community, we always was transparent with all of you women out there to say, supplier diversity is just one avenue. It's one path to contracting. It is one strategy. It's not the only thing you should be focusing on. We empowered our women because should it go away, right, we still needed you to know how to build good old-fashioned relationships directly on LinkedIn or at an expo. How do I position myself to compete with confidence irrespective of supplier diversity? We were already teaching that. So I'm really proud that we leaned into a future forward approach of giving women both paths, the supplier diversity piece and the strategies for getting in front of corporate buyers. So John, I want to go to you. I want to talk about what are y'all saying at the water cooler right now as you think about supplier diversity. Does Project 2025 threaten perhaps what we know today of with the MBE program or the WBE, which by the way is the Women Business Enterprise certification that the big companies want us to have in order to compete for contracts? John, is that threatened in any way?
So I'm going to say, as far as North Carolina is concerned, the answer would be no, because we're talking about getting federally funded. I was said it before, as far as counties, states, those cities, those other opportunities, those other municipalities that also provide those certifications. It's not necessarily threatening their existence, but again, how they may engage with you. The Hub program within North Carolina, that one specifically, I don't believe it'll be threatening. Like it may change again the reality of the engagement for it. But the key to it is to be cognizant again, to read again the terms. How do they determine what a woman business enterprise is? How are these funds derived? How are they allocated? Because it's very easy to be an alarmist and say, hey, everything's on fire,
Yeah.
Run for your life. But I would say that again, I want to go back to what I said initially. We want to wait and see and assess the realities as they are brought to fruition. Still, at the same point, read the tea leaves, protect yourself, and engage. But one thing that I definitely want to, because I have so much going through my mind right now as far as what has been discussed. But one of the more cogent points that I've seen here is regardless of, again, what those programs utilize are, you rely on those, you have to be developing your own skill sets.
Yes.
How you convey information, how you project yourself as a business owner. I work very closely with procurement, RFPs, ITBs, things of that nature. And no matter if you're certified or not, if you cannot write a cogent proposal, it doesn't matter what your certifications are. If you cannot stand in front of a board or as far as to properly explain what it is you do and how you do it, if you can explain your pricing in an effective and efficient manner, all of this is irrelevant. But go back to the question here. Some programs, again, if they are directly tied to federal funds, rather, like the DBE program, you may see some wobbling in that space. But if they're like, again, your private organizations, like for example, WeBank or things of that nature, you may not see too much movement there.
Okay, and let me so this next question is for Amie. Amie, before I go to you, I want to talk about the impact of the LGBTQ plus community and what's happening there. Okay, but before I do, for anyone on this call who is not familiar with this language, as we talk about, someone might be saying, what the heck is a supplier? So I want to just go back for a second. If you are a woman-owned small business and you can hear my voice, all right, and you have an inkling or a desire to do bigger business, maybe you want to sell your services or your products or your goods to corporations or federal governments, that automatically makes you a vendor / supplier / contractor. That's what we're talking about. Okay, so we're talking about those programs, that path potentially being threatened if it falls under the Diversity and Inclusion Act. Okay, now with that said, I want to move to you, Amie. So there's a lot of talk about just LGBTQ plus legislation that's going to be reversed. And we're worried, right? Those of us who are allies, we can only imagine what it feels like for people that have built their whole lives. They've gotten married, they've built businesses together. And the LGBTQ plus community is also considered a part of that supplier diversity, right, piece, right? There's a whole certification for those businesses. What is the impact? What could happen, Amie? Can you paint a picture on what it could mean if legislation gets reversed, and how can we be allies to those businesses and families? Just any insight you can give us on this piece of legislation.
Sure. So I'm actually looking at a copy of the Dismantle DEI Act right now, and I want to point out some language that says that nothing in the section that that I'm looking at, which is you can't use federal funds for all of these DEI purposes, that includes the sexual orientation, gender identity, and whatnot. There's still a savings clause at the end that says nothing can prevent a party in a cooperative agreement, which is what we're talking about here with, some type of agency, an executive agency, from using non-federal funds as it determines. So I think we may be getting down in the weeds with some of our customers and clients saying, look, we understand that, like, say this passes, that if you're receiving federal funds, those funds you might be handcuffed with how you can spend them. However, where in your budget are non-federal funds being allocated, and in that budget, can we work in whatever my proposal is or what have you, if you still want to be addressing those issues?
Okay.
One of the I want to say problems coming up is that we now have people in the LGBTQ plus community that are now leading companies, that are now,
That's right.
in higher positions that are going to still be able to make these decisions.
That's right.
So I think that's really important to remember. I'm also going to go back to a comment I made earlier, which is focus more locally. There's a phrase that I've heard time and again over the last couple of years when talking about bias, subconscious bias, and that sort of thing. It's hard to hate someone up close.
Yes.
So the more we make in-person relationships and really focus hard on your own merit and, getting back to what John was saying, and your networking relationships, that's going to matter. And where you're doing business in various states is going to matter because, of course, different states
have different laws.
Have different laws on all of this. So, and I also want to say one other thing, and this is maybe a bit of a footnote for the whole meeting tonight, and that is try to take a broader view of the forest and not just the trees. Look at presidential elections since time immemorial, where this much is promised and this much actually happens.
It's delivered. Yeah.
Stay hopeful. Stay hopeful.
That's right. No, I love that. No, that's good. So this is what, I want everyone to know that in just a second, we're going to talk about how immigration directly impacts you as a small business, whether you realize it or not. We're also going to talk about new business opportunities that are coming out of this. But before we do, I want to go over to Melissa and Brittany. So I will set this up this way. We've had recent corporate partners. As you know, what Queen City Women in Business does is we get corporate partners to become a part of our community and promise to do business with our women up front. However, many have not liked the term supplier diversity. They're starting to shy away from supplier and diversity, and they're calling it things like supplier opportunity, supplier inclusion. Can you talk about what you all are seeing in the market with this replacing of words and all this? Let's talk about it. Melissa, Brittany?
Sure. So from our end, we haven't really seen too much of a change in language from our perspective in the job market as it pertains to that. But what we can say about it is, you, as Taja said before, you really need to change happens and you really need to adapt and learn who is using the same language differently. Right. And that's how you choose who you want to do business with. So as a woman-owned business, are you targeting businesses that are still doubling down on DEI, or are you going to shy away from businesses that are kind of phasing out of DEI? So that's where, again, your networking is coming in and getting out into your community, because when you're in your community, you're going to have customers who want to do business with you. And not a larger organization. And I'm going to use Walmart as an example. They had terrible Black Friday numbers. And the reason they had a huge dip in Black Friday numbers was because a lot of people are not supporting them because they're rolling back their DEI. So consumers speak very loudly. And when people are not going to support you because you're rolling back on issues that are important to people, they're not going to support your business. And so it's even more important for a small woman-owned business, for example, to be out in your community so those consumers want to do business with you.
Very, very good. Very
Can
interesting.
I add to that, Dawn Nicole, super quick? So I want to make a parallel because this is also happening out there right now. And that is people standing up against toxic ingredients in food. And you're like, how did the two, parallel DEI and toxic ingredients? To Melissa's point, there are people standing outside of corporations such as Kellogg, and they're saying, we are boycotting, supporting your company. We are no longer going to buy your product. So I believe that social media is going to be the most impactful thing for us because we're all capable of using our voice. And that's what we need to continue to do with the things we believe in. And to extend even further on that, companies, whether they're getting funding ripped out from under them or not, their values are not going to change overnight. Company whose true core is about diversity, equity, and inclusion, that's not going to change, and they will find a way to make sure that's part of their culture. And I think that's going to tell the public a lot about who are we going to affiliate with and who are we not. And the companies that are gonna see dips in their consumers, they're going to have to either get up to speed with the times, or unfortunately, I don't think that they're going to survive much longer.
Yeah, no, good stuff. So I want to switch gears. I want to talk about immigration, right? Because a lot of people, and I'm speculating, and I'm going to make a mass assumption here. I get a notion that people may feel like, oh, the immigration thing doesn't affect me, right? That's not me and my family, that's them. But I want to talk about how it does affect businesses, right? Because sometimes not everyone can have a narrow lens. So in case you're unfamiliar, the Trump administration is tightening immigration policies that could significantly impact women's small businesses, in particular, when it comes to agriculture, construction, hospitality, and just overall families, right, who have been rooted here for a really long time. I just wonder if any of the contributors want to take a stab at how they think this could impact women's small businesses and what women's small businesses can do to not be impacted by this. So any contributors want to jump in? Yeah.
Or I'll jump in quickly, and that I would do an employee audit to determine, make sure of your workforce, do you have undocumented immigrants in your workforce, and to get really clear with yourself about that. That may be something that someone else was handling or whatever. But to be super clear about that, if there's anybody that is kind of on the cusp, if you can get them through and get that done. The other thing, though, that I would look at is in your supply chain, particularly if you're if you sell goods and not services, look beyond just your company and see what you're buying and whether they have significant undocumented individuals that are supplying their workforce, because that's where we might see some breakdown. I would also start thinking about, because we're going to see that more in the supply chain of goods and not services, are you able to pivot and maybe have a new line in your a business in your company that's a service offering to potentially supplement your income on the product side?
Yeah, and that's especially true for women businesses, like you said, Amie, who sell products and they rely on, right, the supply chain of people who may be undocumented. You might be thinking, oh, this doesn't affect me, but if they're deployed, your supply chain is no longer, it can't continue. So very good points. I want to switch gears and talk about healthcare. I want to talk about healthcare because if you're on this call and you're a woman business owner and you're going to say, why are we talking about healthcare? Guess what? We're human first. We're women first, right? Like you have to be alive and well to run your business, right? So I want to talk a little bit about just some healthcare changes, because Project 2025 outlines changes to the healthcare policy that could significantly impact women, from their reproductive health restrictions to changes in Medicaid, Medicare, particularly for entrepreneurs who might, have parents or themselves be on it. So I want to just go to Melissa and Brittany. What are some implications of healthcare policy changes that you all are hearing about? What are some rumblings that you're hearing from others?
Sure, I'll take this one. I actually have talked with several healthcare executives on this particular issue because, it's important, right? And as you said earlier, it is really a big unknown for them,
Right.
I had a conversation with the chief medical officer of a large healthcare company, a few executives who are in healthcare as well, and they all agreed it's really difficult. The one thing that they all agree on is that at some point there could be a decrease in federal funding possibly for Medicare, Medicaid. That's what they're looking at, and a possible, and this is where it would affect a small business, possible increase in tax for healthcare if you're providing health care for your employees, for small businesses. So those are some of the things that you might want to look at, but it's hard to really project what's going to happen because it really is a big unknown.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Does any other contributors want to chime in before we move forward to tax cuts and incentives? Yes, Dr. Stephanie, please.
Yeah, and also too is going to impact those, especially as self-employed, who do not have insurance, and we're using things like Obamacare
Right.
and those types of services. So we do really need to be mindful about the impact of the new administration coming in saying that they want to remove that, but do not have a replacement for it. They've been very clear that they do not have a replacement. So I think we also need to be really, really mindful about what your insurance is looking, what your healthcare is looking like, the insurance at your coverage. You might need to start setting back more money to the side because you don't know what that hit is going to actually be like. You might need to allocate in a different way and look for other opportunities. So please be mindful that they have a big target on Obamacare without a replacement. So please be mindful.
I
No,
will, if I could just jump in
Yeah.
one last thing.
Sure.
So
Yep.
Brittany and I actually have a lot of clients who are in politics on both sides. And one of the things that we've talked about with them is, and again, this is a big unknown because we don't know what's going to happen. But as far as they are telling us that nothing will be repealed if there isn't a replacement. So
Okay.
don't have fear that something's going to be taken away and then there's going to be nothing to replace it. We just don't know what will replace it. So there will be something that does come along to replace whatever it is.
Okay, no, that's good. So one thing, so I want to move forward to tax cuts and incentives for businesses. So one thing that everyone seems to be really excited about across the board, no matter where you fare, is that this administration, right, promises to be really good economically to businesses, small businesses, big businesses. So I want to talk about some of those tax cuts that actually went into effect in 2017, where President Trump, incoming President Trump plans to sustain those and increase those. And so Taja, I'm going to pass this one to you. This is your arena. Can you talk a little bit about the immediate impacts to women's small businesses when it comes to some things that they might be able to look forward to, tax incentives, tax breaks, and more?
Yeah. Well, I always love talking about the bottom line. So it is definitely going to impact cash flow.
Yes.
And I think that's in a good positive way in a couple of reasons. One, it'll allow you to reinvest within your company dynamics, hopefully making you more innovative, allowing you to build capacity with employment, hiring, to help with your growth and expansion. But it's also going to allow for you to be more competitive, especially if you align what are those savings in places that will allow for you to build that resilience and to be more competitive. So I do believe, and it'll also allow for you, I hope, will be the breathing room to plan long term. To give your business a little bit more longevity in the long run. So I think those are some very key immediate things that you will see based on that bottom line growing a little more healthier for you. So.
One thing I want to say, you said a word, and I've been hearing everyone use this word, right? The word resilience. I don't know if y'all saw, there were headlines like, people need to be more resilient in 2025. There's this notion of sink or swim. There's this notion that Project 2025 and beyond is about leveling a playing field where everyone, right, has, and so this was, I believe, the thinking in some cases with rolling back DEI. Let's put everything, equal, right? And please don't, I'm just telling you what the tone is right now. And as a result, there's this notion that we should be looking at how to level up, how to be resilient, right? How to pull ourselves up from the bootstraps. So I want to talk a little bit about that word resilience. And I want to go to Brittany and Melissa. How can a woman, and I'm looking for some actionable steps, because one thing, I'm a very actionable, right? There's a lot of people that can tell you what, they can't tell you how. I'm a how person. I want to know, how does a woman who maybe she used to rely on the grant piece and the box checking of this, but now 2025 is going to make her level up? right? How does she become more resilient? What does that look like? How does she reinvent, redefine, and play at a higher level? Melissa, Brittany, I want to hear this from you.
I'll take this first because I know I want to talk about networking and leveling up and the how behind that. And Melissa's probably going to talk about branding. So networking is important, and we can throw out statistics all day long to say why networking is important. But at the end of the day, people don't really know how to do it successfully. I think a lot of people think networking just ends at building relationships with people, but it's not that easy when you're really trying to leverage those relationships. It really comes down to certain strategies, and it really comes down to understanding what types of reflective questions you should be asking people in your network, how often to follow up with people in your network, et cetera, et cetera. So if you are really looking to raise the bar, small business owner or not, I think everyone should really be leveling up in their career by understanding how to expand and leverage their network.
Add on to that by saying your brand is the same way. You know, you need to level up your brand no matter what, whether you have federal funding, whether you have local funding, whatever it is, you always need to be leveling up your brand to be better than you were last year. It's not a competition with everybody else. It's better than who you were last year, and leveling up that brand and getting out into your community and networking within your community to get your brand out there. And that's really what's going to help you pivot if you're worried about any grants that you might not be getting, because the community is going to know who you are, and that's who they're going to want to support.
And speaking of networking, you all are in Massachusetts, the power of networking and how we met, right? I think you all were going to talk about the power of networking a little bit, right?
Yes. Networking is one of the most powerful things that you can do. And there's a phrase that I use all the time, and I'm always posting it on LinkedIn. So if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, please do. I post about it, and Brittany and I talk about it all the time. It's called ECHO. Every connection has opportunity, right? And if you're networking the right way, it doesn't matter who you're networking with. People think that if they want to level up in their career, they need to network with a VP at a specific company, the CEO. You need to network with anybody that you can have a good conversation with, because you don't know who that person knows, right? I tell this story all the time. I call it the banjo story. I had a client who didn't want to network with her banjo teacher. And finally, I convinced her that it was important to network with everybody because you never know who they know. She ended up networking with him, and he introduced her to his daughter-in-law, who happened to be a VP at a company she was interested in. So you can't worry about what they do for a living or how they can help you. You just have to understand that every connection you make has a possible opportunity.
That's good.
To that point, I want to expand on that because we're talking to small business owners here. So it's like, if you are selling, let's say, a product, in your mind, you're going to think, all right, let me network with people who I think are going to buy my product. But it's so funny how networking really works itself out, because when you relax into the concept of ECHO, you can go to your son's basketball game and start talking to the referee. That's probably not someone that's going to buy your product, but his daughter might. So having these types of conversations, and again, it really is about the strategy behind how we network and how we follow up with people and how we leverage these relationships, which that's a whole nother like 2-hour tutorial we could do. But I think if everyone can start pushing outside their comfort zone a little bit and adopting that concept of ECHO, every connection has opportunity, you have to allow the evidence to surprise you in saying, wow, I really understand how the web is a lot bigger than I initially think in selling my service or product.
No, that's good. And it's going to be even more important as we move forward in 2025. I think that's the whole point of it, is making sure we become intentional, right? So like, you're not going to be able to afford not to network in 2025. It is going to truly be about who you know, where you go, what you can show. I always say that. Okay, we're going to move on. I do want to talk about trade policies and tariffs, because that is also a part of it, right? Increased tariffs on Chinese goods, raised costs for small businesses, reduced profit margins in some case. Attorney Amie, I want to go to you. How will these tariff changes and trade policies directly impact small businesses?
So the first thing I want to do is in the same way that you talked about and just wanted to level set on what's a supplier, who's a supplier or a vendor. I want to make sure people understand how to cut through a lot of the misinformation that's been out there. There have been various high profile speakers that have used the phrase tax other countries to mean tariffs.
Yes.
That's not at all how tariffs work. We as a country do not have the power to level taxes on other countries, period. So I want to make that clear.
Yeah.
A tariff, it is an additional cost to import goods that ultimately is passed down to a consumer.
Mm-hmm.
I have also heard people say, well, I'll have more money to spend when all of the income tax gets eliminated in the United States. I'm not really sure that's going to ever happen. So I will just leave you with some of those kind of foundational bullet points. What I would encourage us to do, all of us to do, that have any outside of the US products that you are importing in your supply chain would be to immediately look at, if you have capital on hand, what can you purchase before January 20th and get that on board, even if it means making some changes in your Q4 or early Q1 budget for the next couple of months, number one. Number two, start looking for domestic suppliers of those products. Number three, as I mentioned earlier, look into alternative lines of business in terms of how you are providing your goods and services to your customers. Let's say you've been importing in pieces for assembling and selling widgets. Maybe your service, an adjacent service you could offer is supply chain management. How do you help other companies figure this out? And then that becomes a service you offer as a consultant, as opposed to just selling your own widgets. How can you use all of your talents and skills you've developed to add a service line to what it is you're already doing? So I think being aware of those opportunities and doing that analysis of your company is super important.
Yeah, that's good. You went right into where I want to take us next. You said opportunity. I want to talk about it. So when I think about tariffs and taxes and trade policies, right? And the threat that we're going to put a tariff on Mexico or China, right? In these places where people, like, so if you have a clothing business, for example, you might be sourcing out of China, right? You might be sourcing goods from Mexico. What domestic opportunity does this create? Taja, I'm going to go to you. So, because after this question, I'm going to pivot and talk about new business ideas that women should be entertaining because of 2025 and where we're headed. Taja, but how does the domestic opportunities create an opportunity for women businesses?
Yeah, so I see it kind of in three different areas. I see the opportunity in manufacturing growth. Obviously, we just talked about it. I think about one of my members there in Indiana, Nancy Ryder, who is in automotive components. That is going to be a big opportunity for her to be able to leverage that now from a domestic standpoint. So anybody who is in textiles, technology, electronics, industrial equipment, I think this is an opportunity that exists for them in that manufacturing space. We talked a little bit about the diversification of supply chain. So anyone in logistics, anyone who can distribute items to and fro. I think this is a great opportunity for them to be able to leverage. And then I think there are some key areas of innovation that really will expand here. We talked a little bit about technology. Green energy will be one that I think is going to be big as we look ahead. I think anything in that energy efficiencies is going to make a lot of sense here as well. And just I say this all the time, and I will say it again, sustainability is definitely going to be at the core.
So no, go ahead. No, I was just going to say, you're taking us right where we want to go next. Yeah.
Well, good. Because I can lean in also on the new business opportunities that I think also would exist, but I'll take your lead on where you want to go with that.
No, that's exactly the next question. You were mentioning about sustainability. Tell us why. I'm real big on what it is, why it is, and how to do it. Tell us, why is this the right time for that? And then I'm going to share a personal. Y'all know I never leave a call without giving y'all the nuggets, right? The gold. So talk about why now is the right time for that. And then I'm going to give them some strategic tips like we always do at Queen City Women in Business. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I mean, it goes without saying when you look at what is our universe
Yeah.
and what is happening in our universe, the ability to keep what we currently have in the forms of energies and our ecosystem in itself, our not ecosystem, our environmental self,
Yeah.
right, is very important. So the cutting away of exorbitant use of items so that we can have that is very, very much so important. So, you and I joke about this all the time. We kill a lot of trees, that is not sustainability. We've got to figure out ways to look at technology as a way to reinvest or step away from that. And that is going to be key. Companies are going to be looking for your company to say, okay, are you able to use what are EVs versus gas-driven automobiles, to deliver those logistics and distribution? Are you looking at those type of things as abilities? Because that's important to them from an overarching sustainability to their company dynamic. They're going to want to know that their suppliers also have support of that in their servicing.
I love that. I'm going to touch on something and then I'm going to go to Dr. Stephanie. So I want to stay here for a moment because this is what you came here for. Like, this is, I got to, I have questions. Most of the questions from the attendees were, how do I pivot? How do I position myself? What should I be doing that I'm not doing? What should I have on my radar? Let me tell you, I am the queen of the message. Let me tell you exactly. So let me tell you what Dawn Nicole was busy doing today. While everyone is holiday partying it up, I'm reaching out to every single partner. I'm touching every single corporate partner. Even if I thought I knew what you did 6 months ago, I know your agenda is changing based on the administration changing. So you know what I'm doing? And here's a tip. Reach out and say, hey, before the new year, do you have 15 minutes for virtual coffee, right? Get a virtual coffee and ask these questions. What is on your radar in the next 90 days? What is changing? I will tell you that so much business I just won in December, and we're sitting on the 4th because I reached out and asked a question, and I found out one of our big corporate partners cares largely about sustainability frameworks. Everyone is talking about eco-friendly, green, solar energy, electric vehicles. Get with it. Ladies, if this was not in your vernacular 6 months ago, it should be. Figure out what you have that you could offer in this field. Are you a trainer? Talk about what you can do. I can train, I can teach, I can lead. What is your message? I can amplify it. So just by doing these virtual touches with our entire suite of corporate partners, whatever I thought I knew is changing, right? So in this virtual connect, I just got an opportunity to make not one proposal, not two, 3 big proposals on December 10th in person, because I asked the question and I leaned into sustainability, and I found out that they care about not only sustainability framework for suppliers that they want us to lead nationwide, but they also care about sustainability for the big acts that come to the city, the Beyoncés, the Taylor Swift. Did y'all know that when major artists who are singers and performers come to some of these performance centers in your city, they have to be sustainable. They get a score, they get a discount. Did you know that's a thing? Lean in, right? So I'm saying that to you because I guarantee many people didn't even have this on their radar, but start finding out what is new, trending, and changing. So this is a tip. Everything is always new, trending, and changing. It is upon us to find out what that is, right, with the season. And then what you have to already offer. I'm not saying you have to make something up. What do you have of value to contribute to what's new, trending, and changing? That's always your assignment, okay? All right, so let me stop preaching. Y'all know that's what I do at QCWIB because I want to see you be great. Dr. Stephanie, so as we talk about new opportunities, what are some other new opportunities to be identified in 2025 that we might not have on our radar?
I was on LinkedIn, and LinkedIn, if you're not connected, you need to get on it They have the LinkedIn Big Ideas for 2025. They just launched out of their newsletter. It's really, really good. And they have 25 things that are now innovative and coming forward. And they talk to experts about them. And pretty much the underlying field that they're going for is innovation of old applications. So, whatever it is that you're doing, you need to innovate and increase it. For example, if you create journals or books, now that sustainability is a part of that, what products are you using so that you can say that the products that you're using on your journals are sustainable, right? So it's not like you're creating another product, but you are leveraging and you're being innovative with what it is that you're already doing so that you are a part of the temperament that's going forward. So I thought that was really interesting. And one of the things that they had on there is this new push for return to work. And so one of the innovations that they were talking about is that team lunches are going to be really, really big when it comes to now this return to work to create culture.
Oh, wow.
So if you're a caterer, okay,
Yes.
here you go. Teams, how are you going to get in there? Because they're making people mad. They don't want to go back to work.
So how are you going to make it
how
sweet?
can you have that conversation to make the lunch nice, right? So, things like that. And then I thought it was interesting if you have tourism or those types of things in your bag. They were talking about now virtual tourism should be a part of your packaging. So how are you adapting and allowing people to see these new countries and places that you're going? And I thought what was really interesting too is also leveraging this AI conversation, because they're saying now AI is going to create a shorter work week. So what is it about what you do and how you can kind of impact that conversation as a consultant on how to support organizations in having a shorter work week so that they, so that they can move forward with that if you have that organizational leadership lens. So another one that was juicy, y'all, they're saying AI robots in construction. I was like, what you say? That's fascinating, right? So, you just got to kind of pay attention. So look at the list. It was like 25 great things. But my kind of giveaway for you all too, as you're being innovative, y'all, please, please, please hone down on who your client is.
Yes.
I mean, niche down to, the color draws they wear. I mean, niche, right? I mean, like go, really get tight. I'm serious. Get tight, because what is the pain? What pain are you solving for your client? This has nothing to do with federal monies. It has everything to do with how you show up and what you know about your client. You must know their pain, and your way of addressing the pain is the solution. So in that innovative conversation, y'all niche down. Know your customer. Your customer is not everybody. Don't be afraid to say, this is all I work with, so that you'll know who you need to go after and go after those pain points. So that's the new thing, but go read the article. It's really, really good. And it's called, again,
can you put it in the chat? Everyone is asking. I'm sorry, Dr. Stephanie, not this. So I've had like 5 people. By the way, if you're trying to chat, it only comes to me. That's on purpose. Dr. Stephanie, can you put it in the chat and I'll send it out with the email that's going out later this evening? Okay.
Yeah, but it's just LinkedIn big, and you just type it in the search bar. Type it in Big Ideas 2025, and it's a black box, and it says Big Ideas. Just say link when you go to LinkedIn and go in the search box. Big Ideas 2025. It's a part of their newsletter. And it's 25 things that they've reached out and talked to innovators about. So
I love it. No, this is good. This is so good. And I love that you said niche down. And so just so everyone is clear, we have more conversation around new business opportunities, but I do want these women to know right now, if you are listening to this, right, and you are on here, part of what we're doing to advocate for all of you in 2025 is we're already connecting with corporate partners who've already said, I want to work with women businesses. So that's where Queen City Women in Business is a little different. So we are a safe space for you in 2025, because you don't have to look far. We go and find the corporate partners like Lowe's, right? Like others who are big partners, First Citizens Bank and more, who are looking to do business with women-owned businesses. So we're making it a little easier for you. But I want to talk about this as well. Did you all know that the National Weather Service, which is free, everybody, just a show of hands, y'all know National Weather Service is a free app on your phone, right? You can look at the weather. Did you know that the administration in 2025 wants to monetize it? Does everybody realize that? That they're and not only do they want to monetize it, they're encouraging private companies to figure out how to monetize it, right? So again, sometimes when things look like a challenge, they're really an opportunity, right? So I want to talk some more about opportunities, some other opportunities, like I said, solar energy space, sustainability, what else? So I'm getting some questions in the chat. I just want to open it up real fast. Danola, you put that in the chat to everyone. Thank you. So here's a couple of questions. Michelle G says, in my networking, I love to send cards, print and or online for a holiday and stay in touch with my network. So is there anyone out there that has this product? Oh, so Michelle is looking to work with a woman-owned business. Ladies, if you're on this call, right, who this is what you do. So I don't know if anyone does that. If so, please respond to me and we'll connect you with our QCWIB member, Michelle. We also got some other questions. Let me go back. I had someone ask me, Nicole, can you clarify what you meant when you said sustainability scorecard? So like if Taylor Swift comes to Charlotte, North Carolina and does a big concert, what did you mean when you said discount? So does anyone want me to clarify that? Because maybe I said it too fast. So what I am saying, ladies, is this is an opportunity for every major city. Did you know in every major city, when the big acts come to town to play in that city, the venue spaces are looking for them to be eco-friendly? Did you know that? And they get a discount on the price and they get scored on how eco-friendly they are. So Takesha Jones, who asked me that question, like Taylor Swift, for example, make it right for that act, she can't say that she's going to use a pollutant, a flame, right? She's not going to pollute the air, or she's not going to leave a bunch of paper. So there are critical questions that have to do with eco-friendly and green and carbonation, you know, and being eco-friendly and sustainable that she has to comply with in order to get some of the best rates. This is a big deal. This is a big deal in stadiums now. So if you're in a city where there's a football team, a baseball team, there is a sustainability and eco-friendly plan for the city. So I would say, women, that's opportunity for us to look that up. Okay. Awesome. So I'm going to keep going because I could be on the soapbox here. All right. So Dr. Stephanie, you talked about new opportunities. Now this is an attendee question. Morgan Mason from North Carolina asked, what does strategic planning for 2025 look like for women-owned businesses aiming for success? Whatever I had planned, how do I need to pivot and change that to be in a line? So Melissa and Brittany, can you answer this one?
I'll go first really quick. I don't know if this is going to be super cliche and generic, but I just cannot understate how important this is. Your passion is going to be what attracts opportunity and prosperity. And Melissa and I work with people who make a lot of money, and they come to us and they've hit this point in their career and they're like, I'm not happy. Like, I don't really know what to do next. And they have this like lowish vibrational energy. And Melissa and I have to work with them on getting the passion, you know, like reinvented inside of them. So Melissa and I see firsthand all the time how passion can completely transform an individual. Your passion is going to be the most important thing you have about your brand. And I don't think that 2025 is going to be a year for you to play small.
That's right.
And I think that if we're talking about strategic planning, and again, this is like, what actionable items can I really like take away from what she's saying? But I can't understate, like when you're looking at your plan for 2025, ask yourself, am I doing all of these things that I plan to do with my utmost passion? Is my unique signature in everything that I'm doing? Because if you have room to actually grow in those areas, now is the time to do it. Melissa?
Yeah. And I think taking that passion and buttoning up that brand and getting out into the community, one of the notes I made is, what value are you bringing to your community, your local area, where people are going to know who you are? That's a big part of what's going to take place in 2025. You really have to get out there and let people know you and who you are, because people don't just buy a product, they buy it from a particular person. They can buy that product anywhere, but they're going to buy it from you because they like you. And I think that's really what you need to focus on for 2025.
That's good. No, that's really good. So I'm getting a lot of great questions in the chat. So certifications, right? So the questions for, by the way, just I like to make sure everyone understands the certifications that you hear us talk about tonight are those diversity certifications that we have to get as women-owned businesses to prove that we're a women-owned business. So a big corporation does business with us and gets credit for doing business with a women-owned business. The question in the chat was, hey, Dawn, what certifications should we still be focusing on, or are there call outs? I'm going to tell you what I always tell all of our members: continue to get the certifications until you hear otherwise. Continue to get, don't stop. Do not be that person that says, well, it's 2025. I would not do that until you hear otherwise, because what I believe there's still going to be a world that exists where major corporations are going to want to count the diverse spend and get credit for doing business with women-owned businesses like you.
And I add to that, because I think this is important to note. Certifications are credibility, as we all know. So having certifications is incredibly important. But so is experience. And I think this is where people drop the ball a little bit, because if you have a very particular achievement, highlighting that on social media or on your LinkedIn page or on your website, for many customers or clients, that experience means more than a certification. So I think really doubling down on making sure, like, what achievements did I have in 2024 that I can add to my website or that I can add to my LinkedIn profile? That's something you can actually do for strategic planning for 2025. Look back at 2024 and say, where did I maybe drop the ball? And what can I highlight to make sure that that doesn't go unnoticed? Thank you.
Yeah, and just to clarify, so no one gets confused, we're not talking about educational certifications. We're talking about, as a woman-owned small business, we have to, by compliance, have certifications. So we're talking about diversity certifications, which is a different ballpark than education certifications. I just want to clarify that so no one gets confused. Okay, so Darlene is asking a question. She's saying, I'm a leader, I'm a leadership development coach and consultant. How can I benefit from any of this? Darlene, is that a serious question? There's always leadership and development coaching needed in everything. You could benefit from all of it. In fact, we already have corporate partners who can't wait to meet you if you're a member.
I would love to speak to that for a second, Dawn Nicole, because if you are a leadership coach, you need to understand where people can pivot so you can coach them on how to pivot into a new space, whether it is they're taking back diversity and now we have to pivot into something new. You need to be a good leader and a coach you're going to have so many more clients if you're able to be adaptable and also teach your clients to pivot into something new.
I love that.
Great opportunity.
I love that. And then I'm going to go to John, and then I'm sorry, John was trying to ask me a question in the chat. John, did you have something to say? I don't want to ignore
you. So the first thing I want to say is that when we talk about diversity certifications, it's not just a box check, right? These are organizations that provide other resources like development, financing, cash flow analysis. More importantly, I think is hitting the nail on this is the networking piece. Expanding your network so you can engage with businesses that may, again, be in the same space as you, the same field as you, that can give you insight. And just like, again, we had the question before, somebody asking about someone who can make cards for them. This is the spaces that you need to be in to be intentional, again, with these engagements. It is not just a box checking thing. All right, you can do both. You can, again, develop yourself as far as skills and expertise, but at the same time, expand your network. Do not look at these certifications as, again, just box checking.
Yeah.
They are a way for you to grow and develop your business.
Yeah. That's good. That's good. Taja, you were ready to go.
I just wanted to echo what Melissa was saying. You've heard us talk a lot about sustainability, green energy. If you are a coach, I would be getting myself well-versed on how I can help company dynamics embrace this, because that is where they'll need help, is understanding how to embrace that, where to embrace that.
Yep.
If I was a corporation needing that, I'd buy that from a training and development person all day long, right now.
Me too. Yeah. And I was just going to say, if you are an independent coach and this is your business and your livelihood, and you work with other small businesses, right? I would be pivoting my services to help them acclimate to 2025 changes, right? So Melissa, I think that's where you were going. You were like, other people are going to need to know how to lean in, right? There's so much.
This is an opportunity. This isn't a roadblock. This is an opportunity.
Right. Absolutely. Dr. Stephanie.
And also too, if you all are like me and you have a specific framework or proprietary work, that you're leveraging, don't push that aside. So I heard someone say she didn't know what to do with her leadership component. I'm sure you worded it different. You need to know what problem do you solve? It goes back to my original conversation. If you do leadership development, child, there are thousands of us out here do leadership development. What is it specific about what you do that somebody purchases? Where do you want to have your lane? Where is your yellow brick road? You cannot just be there for everybody. You see what I'm saying? If you're going to be sustainability, be the best person that does that. So if you are one who is multiverse and you do a lot of different things and you train in a lot of different ways, then figure out what are your top 3 that you do. Don't say you do everything. Please don't, because companies want specialty. They want to know that they have the best at it. They don't want somebody who's a generalist. What do you do? Where do you want to flow? Brittany talked about your passion. Where is it that you want to lean? And what does that look like? You have to master your customer and you have to master yourself. What are those things? What do you bring to the table so that you can master it, so that you can sell it? So don't be a jack of all trades. What do you do? Do it well and make your money.
That's
I want to be
good.
brief with this too. I'm sorry, one sec. Dr. Stephanie has a very cogent point, because again, as somebody that works in the government space with procurement, it's not just a product you sell. The service is how you deliver that product. You cannot be effective in any space, certifications, whatever it is, one business enterprise or not. You must know, again, what you're selling, how you sell it, and more importantly, what are your differentiators? What separates you from other people in that field? It's very, very brief, but Dr. Stephanie was very, very on point with that. You have to be cognizant of, again, what you bring to the table, how you are different, and what puts you, again, ahead of your competition. And it comes from somebody that works directly with procurement across all departments within government. That is always a sticking point. Recognize that.
Yeah,
I
and
think
now
Dawn, Nicole, if I could, I heard the word proprietary and I've heard the word branding a lot. And I want to make sure that we don't forget where intellectual property and your business value intersect, making sure you're protecting that. So you've identified all of your differentiators, as John and Dr. Stephanie have addressed. But if there's somebody else out there whose website looks just like yours, or they've stolen your brand, your actual image of your brand, you're going to have, your customers confused with someone else. I had that phone call today where one of our clients was trying to connect with a potential customer, and they said, well, we talked to you yesterday. Well, they had not talked to him yesterday. They had talked to someone else who had basically copied their website and were, overlapped in the services they provide. So that type of thing is critically important. If you have something that's a trade secret, getting that locked down appropriately. If any of these materials you're putting together are worthy of copyright protection, getting that stuff locked down. It's not just to protect you now. It's also, what's your potential exit strategy from this company when you're ready to move forward? How are you building that value so that you've got the best exit strategy you can? So I don't want us to overlook those nuts and bolts as we are focused on all the pivoting and whatnot. There are still some business fundamentals that are going to be really important continuing as you go forward.
Yeah, no, that's good. And I was just going to say, now more than ever, your ability to communicate your differentiator, right? Because now that's what this is all about, is being resilient, this supposed equal level playing field, right? Equal, taking away all of the things. And so that you now have to prove yourself and articulate that value in a different way. So one of the questions that came up, I definitely want to make sure we leave time for questions at the end. So SBA programs, right? We didn't talk much about veterans, but I do want to say this is going to be a very veteran friendly administration, or with Project 2025, it seems to be very favorable to veterans. I know we have some veterans on the call, like Sandy Hardy with Boots to Hills and some others. So thank you for your service, veterans. But let's talk about SBA programs. I personally, with everything I read, they should be okay, because small business is always going to be a part of America, right? It's always going to be ingrained in whatever policy, right? SBA is about the Small Business Administration's programs for small business. So Amie, would you like to take a stab, or Taja, on where you see SBA programs and grants falling? I feel like they should be protected with everything I read, but I'd like to get your opinion.
Sure, I'd be glad to jump in. So it's about 22% of companies that are owned by women in this country. So, but that's of small businesses. So that means there's 75, 77% that aren't, but are still small businesses. So to me, that doesn't fall as much in the camp of, you know, destroy DEI type of thing. I think it's broader than that. And I think the more we can begin to see ourselves and maybe even self-identify as a small business owner that offers whatever service we provide, I think that that's, you know, maybe a good thing. I don't think that as a group, we're sort of in postmodern DEI world, because I don't think we've gotten there, but I'm not sure that we right now have the luxury of sort of staying in that place. We've got to move on. The other thing that we can all just keep in mind in terms of that hopefulness with our small business is pendulums swing back. So, you know, a lot of these policies, I believe, if they're implemented the way that they're being articulated, are going to have unforeseen consequences. And I believe those unforeseen consequences are going to start to have some blowback on the folks that are supporting these very policies. And once that begins to come full circle, that's when I think the pendulum is going to potentially swing so that we end up in a more moderate position.
Love it. Love it. Awesome. So Taja, I'll give this, as we come to a close, I would like to toss this one to you. You are a woman of innovation, a woman of vision. Like TMG Solutions is all about that. TMG Solutions Advisors. Talk about, from an overall perspective, how does a woman need to be positioned to succeed in 2025? What does that look like?
I think we've captured a great deal of it here tonight. So I'll try to recap all of it here. Really drilling in on what it is you provide, the value that you provide in the market, the differentiators of what that is going to be key. I think making certain that you are realigning and really optimizing every opportunity to whatever the adjustments are, be it regulated, be it that it was market condition wise, that you are paying attention, being intentional and paying attention to the movement, the vernaculars, the things that are happening in the procurement space, if they're using different language to identify who you as a segment, making certain that you are addressing that. And I can't express enough, we talked about it a lot, making sure you're nurturing your network. Continuing to network, continuing to nurture that network is going to be critical. It has to be. I think those things are going to help you to sustain what is the next 4 years. And I want to keep that in mind. We're talking 4 years.
Yeah.
That's what this is about potentially right now. To what Amie said, rollbacks and things happen where a new administration can come in and change this whole dynamic again. So let's just really be mindful of, what do I do for what is this period?
Wonderful.
And to follow up on that, midterms are in 2 years.
That's right. Yes.
So don't forget that. Pay attention, be involved.
Yep, that's good. So one point I want to make, and then we're going to open it up for questions. So attendees, if you have questions, now is the time to put your question in the chat before we come to a close. But one quick announcement, this video will go up on our YouTube channel. Danola has been kind enough. By the way, thank you, Danola Burton, for all of your support tonight. Danola Burton with DNA, right? Danola, you want to come off mute real fast? I don't know if we gave you a chance to introduce yourself and your business. But this will be on our YouTube channel, by the way. Go ahead, Danola.
Hello, I'm Danola Burton in Indianapolis, Indiana, and my business is Enhance the DNA. It stands for Develop, Nurture, and Achieve, where we develop and nurture individuals and organizations so they can achieve their leadership, communication, and performance objectives.
I love it. Thank you. One thing I will say to all of you ladies tonight is I'm going to give you a challenge because that's what we do at Queen City Women in Business. By the way, if you're ready for your 2025 to be epic and you know for a fact that you're ready to work with big corporations and government, become a member. Don't think about it. Don't wait on it. What is going to be different about 2025 is we're already going after corporations who've already said, I want to continue to stand with small businesses. I want to continue to work with women, right? That's what we do. We already have those corporate partners. So we encourage you to come in. Danola's going to put a link in the chat on how you can do that. But here's a challenge as she does that. I'd love to give you all real actionable takeaways. If you're already working with corporations, you already are working with companies that are large, right? I would go to a lot of these larger companies, and then I'm going to tell you something for small businesses. Okay, so stay with me. I would go to my bigger corporate partners and I would ask one question on that virtual coffee that I recommended. I would ask a question that says, hi, I'm Dawn Nicole. Quick question for you. What are you currently doing to pivot or prepare for 2025? I'm curious to know, what are you currently doing? What are you changing, right? Because you can better believe that right now in December, they're all thinking about next year. And many of them that I talk to are retooling their budgets for the new administration. They know things are changing, things that they thought aren't, right? As of October. So people are going back in the budget right now. I've sent many 2025 budget proposals because it's still open. I would encourage you to retouch people you already worked with first and ask, what are you changing in 2025 in the next 90 days? What are you focusing on? What are you all finding you need to change? Can we talk about it? Right. And I'm not long-winded with the first email. So if you haven't talked to them in a while, it's a quick, good to see you. I hope you're doing well. Quick question for you. What are you all focusing on in 2025? What's changing? What are you setting up for? What are you preparing for? How are you pivoting in 2025? I'm curious. I want to lean in. Can we talk about it? Right. So if you all want the template, I'm very forthcoming. I have a LinkedIn strategy like nobody's business, 30,000 plus connections, and I didn't do it by accident. So I know a little bit about what I'm talking about how to get where I want on LinkedIn. So I would suggest you do that. And then for small businesses, if your market is small businesses, go back to people you already served and support and ask them, hey, I'm just, I know we worked together 6 months ago or last year. What are you doing to get ready for 2025? What are you doing to show up in more confidence? I'm curious. I want to hear your plan. Can we meet for a virtual coffee? Ask the big businesses and the small businesses because they need, right? Everyone is pivoting and preparing. So that's what I would say. Let me go ahead and answer some questions. So Miss Lawson is asking a question. This is for any of our panelists, our contributors. What is the best way to increase prices? Oh, we're doing this too, Miss Lawson. What is the best way to increase prices for current clients to prepare for upcoming price hikes and shortages? Who wants to take that one, panelists?
I'll take it.
And then I'll talk about what we're doing. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I did that last year and I not raised my prices for 3 years. And when I sent out my communication to my clients, letting them know about it, I got more work. I didn't lose any clients. I didn't get any nasty responses. I got responses saying, hey, can you do this project? Hey, can you do this project? And I just told them I was going to charge them more. But that's because this is how I did it. I was authentic and I was transparent. I said, my prices went up by 22%. And I'm going to pass on half of that to you, and I'm going to eat the other half. So here's where my team's rates are going. We love working with you. We want to continue doing that. And that's, I literally had my team put together an email in my voice and sent it out. That's what worked for me.
Wonderful. And I think it's a good idea for all of us to relook at our prices. I do. I think it's a healthy, hygienic exercise every single year, right? Because things are always going up, right? So anyone else want to tackle that? Any other responses?
I also just want to say it's perceived value too. As you increase your prices, you become more valuable as well.
Yeah, completely. And by the way, we're increasing our price, right? We, as you all know, we have 3 membership levels. We're increasing our basic and our pro member level. because we're offering more value in 2025. We have new corporate partners who already said, show me the women, we're ready to work. So if we're making it easier, right, for you all to get big contracts, that's valuable to you. So we should be compensated for that. I do think, to Amy's point, having a strategy. So it's not enough to say, oh, I'm going to do it, but how are you going to do it, right? Strategy is always the how. So how are you going to do it? How are you going to communicate it? For us, we're going to do it obviously before the new year, but we're going to use that to incentivize women to come in before we increase the prices. So if you're out there, come in now while the prices are lowest that they're ever going to be, ladies. All right. So no, I do think it's a very hygienic thing to do. Any other points on pricing from our panelists?
I will say this, because I deal with pricing all the time. It is a mindset, right? Like, why is it that gas prices can change, eggs in the grocery store, bacon, all those things can change, and we will still buy them, but yet we condition ourselves to think no one will buy us if we were to increase a price. So it really is it's a mindset. And I think the more we get in the habit of doing those increases, it won't feel so I don't know the word I'm looking for. It's getting late in the evening. But
a big act of Congress.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, the industries do it all the time. Dynamic pricing is nothing new. You know, if you go to the airport to get an airline ticket right now, it's going to be high.
You know what? And rethink free. And oh, I'm gonna step on some toes, but y'all know, those who know me always hear my story about how we accidentally made $35,000, right? Now, to some of you, that's not a lot of money, right? At the time, it was a lot of money for something that 8 people signed up to do for free. Okay, so rethink free. Remember, 2025 is sort of a new, I just want people to think about resilience, excellence, showing up as your best self. And by the way, that is a word I keep hearing. So I just want to, I'm coming to you, Dr. Stephanie, I just want to make this point. I keep hearing so the corporate partners who want to do business with you, because by the way, that's what we do, we match you with them. They are saying to me, we're starting to look for excellence now. We're starting to look for, now that the playing field is equal, show up with your best self, put your best foot forward, right? We're all sort of competing now together. And so rethink free, make sure your free makes sense. I always talk about how there was an offer with a big corporation who was asking for volunteers, quote unquote, air quotes, for training to build a training program. Can we volunteer? And I was the only one that went back behind the scenes and said, hey, what you're asking is not free. We charge $35,000. This was in my trainer years. And she said, make me an offer. And we did. And we won not just that business, but then the book of business for $150,000 and then a long going contract. So rethink free. You are valuable and you are worth a lot. So think about what free should look like. Dr. Stephanie, go ahead.
And also, too, is going back to my other point, know your client. Because if you have a high-end client and your product is cheap, they're not going to buy it. You got to know your client. What do they want? What does that look like? Are you Walmart or are you Tiffany's? You don't never see Tiffany go on sale. Who is your client? Right. Who is purchasing your product? And if you don't know your client, you'll be charging $20 for something and they're not coming because they don't see it as valuable. So you gotta, it goes back to understanding what you bring to the table and what that looks like. If you don't know your client, you're wondering why you're not making money, they're looking at that price and you're trying to get somebody who makes 6 figures and your product is $47. They're not coming because to them, that means there's no value there because there is no price. So when you don't know your client, you don't know how to price. So you should be always elevating. The more value you bring, the higher your price. Cheap and excellence do not go together. I'm going to say that again. If something is cheap, you can't say you're the best in the business because the best in the business have the highest price. So be mindful of your scarcity mindset. Be mindful of where your understanding of finances and money, because a lot of times we allow our lived experience, going back to my identity framework, we allow our lived experience to come into and seep into our business dynamics. And we're trying to have a luxury or high level business, but the scarcity or our life experience in poverty is causing us to price our products wrong. So, heal that mindset. Yeah. Understand who your client is so that you can get the business that you need to be getting.
Awesome. No, this is all good stuff. And I'm getting a lot of cheers in the chat. One question that came in the chat, this is for attorney Amie Peele. It said, I read that there was a pause on BOI. I'm thinking she's talking about beneficiary owner insurance, or is that, what is the acronym? I'm sorry, it's too late tonight.
It's business owner information. And I was going to mention that at the very end of the call tonight. So I'm really glad that this participant brought it up. So there was a court decision yesterday. It came out of a district court in the Eastern District of Texas. Judge Mazant wrote the opinion. And I actually have some other cases in front of Judge Mazant right now, totally different topic, but in any event, he issued an opinion yesterday and said that that the BOI requirements are not legal and should not be enforced. But it's important to understand that district courts, they're federal courts, but they only have jurisdiction over their district within a state. Judge Mazant said his rule applies nationwide. But I think the jury's still out on whether that can happen. It's not that that sort of application of a decision has never been interpreted to apply nationwide, but it is certainly exceedingly rare for that to happen. We are still advising clients to file your BOI reports before the deadline of the end of this month, because the risk if you don't is so expensive. If it's right now $591 a day per owner. So if Taja and I own a company together, it's $591 for her and $591 for me every day. We expect his decision to be appealed probably right away. And then it may even be appealed beyond the appellate court to the Supreme Court. So obviously we're going to keep watching that. But until the actual agency or a higher court makes a ruling, we are not advising clients to put a pause on their filings until we know more. So that's how the sausage is being made. It's ugly. And there's not a lot of certainty right now.
Wonderful. No, I appreciate it all. And so we got to every single question tonight. I want to take this time to thank our contributors tonight. I do want to say two things before we get ready to conclude. I feel like we did a really great job of tackling a lot of the important issues that will impact women's small businesses. So I thank this expert team. Every single attendee tonight will get an email that has everyone's information. If you're a woman-owned business in any state, to become a member of Queen City Women in Business tonight, right? Today, don't wait. We are one of the biggest communities advocating for women just like you, where we're already working with corporate partners looking to work with you. So ladies, I thank you, and contributors, I thank you, and I'm going to give you a hand tonight. Thank you so much.